He's one of the most recognizable faces in weather. Emmy Award-winning Today Show anchor Al Roker. Beyond being a morning staple in so many households, Roker has taken on a host of other projects, both in front and behind the camera. He's also a best-selling author with more than 10 books under his belt. And his latest work, Ruthless Tide, examines the Johnstown Flood, the deadliest in U.S. history.
You know, I love to start these conversations at the beginning. It's hard to imagine Al Roker away from TV, but as a kid, I know you had some other career ideas. Instead of being a TV personality, maybe you can tell us about what your goals were as a youngster.
Well, you know, it seems like I never was, but John, I've always been a fan of animation, television animation, movie animation. And my goal when I was a kid, I wanted to be an animator for Walt Disney. I wanted to, you know, I mean, I grew up with, you know, the classic animation of Snow White and the Jungle Book and all those great Disney features and the short subjects and also the Warner Brothers shorts, all the Looney Tunes, Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck and the Roadrunner. So that's what I wanted to do. And to be completely honest, I never wanted to be on television. Even when I was in college, I majored in radio and television. Now it's called communications, but back then it was radio and TV. I went to the State University of New York at Oswego, and my department chairman told me, in fact, after my first television performance class, that I had the perfect face for radio.
And yet here you are after this more than 3-decade incredible television career. And one thing I've noticed with all of the athletes and musicians and entertainers that we have profiled for our series is how driven they are, how dedicated they are. In your career, is there one word that might sum up who you are and how you approach every day?
I think maybe surprise. I'm surprised that I'm in this business. I'm surprised I've gotten to where I am. But I'm also, I like to be surprised. I like the wonder of it all. I think weather constantly surprises me. I think interviewing people, talking to people, and they give you answers that surprise you or tell you things that surprise you. I like surprises.
It might have been a surprise for some people back in the early 90s to learn that Al, who's got a busy day job, is also getting into producing television. But you made that move and have made some great programming for all different kinds of networks. Maybe you can tell us about the evolution, the decision to jump into that, what has now been a very successful arena for you.
Well, you know, John, again, it kind of is an offshoot of my idea that I didn't want to be on TV. I wanted to be in television. And I truly didn't want to be on camera. I wanted to be behind the camera. I wanted to be a writer, producer, director, something like that. And around 1992, I got approached by the Food Network to host a Food Network special. Somebody I'd worked with at NBC had moved over to the Food Network and said, would you consider doing a special? And so I did it. And I did another one. They did fairly well. And they said, look, we'd like you to do a series of these. And I thought, well, you know, maybe I could produce them. Could I produce them? And they said, okay, sure. And that really started my television producing career, and we kind of just branched out into different kinds of programming, from doing a show with the Coast Guard, a show with the DEA, doing a show on animal rescue, doing a profile, a documentary on African Americans who were refused, were denied, in a sense, their right to get the Medal of Honor, and we were eventually given those. You know, we have a very wide and disparate portfolio of different kinds of shows we produce, and that's what I like, because it's a different. Everything is a little bit different. We're not pigeonholed into one category.
And you're also a best-selling author, and your latest book, Ruthless Tide, goes into this incredible detail on the Johnstown Flood, 1889, a story that maybe people don't realize was the deadliest in U.S. history. And I wonder if I mean, it certainly speaks to your curiosity. Are you trying to find ties with your day job? I mean, it's hard to not think about all your curiosity around weather leading you into a project like that.
This is, I believe, my 11th book, and I like writing. Well, it comes out of a love of reading, and they say you really should write what you know, and at least on a surface level, I know about weather, and our first weather-related book was one on the Galveston, the storm of hurricane of 1900, where thousands were killed, but not a lot of people knew about this. Ruthless Tide, the Johnstown Flood in America. This is the natural disaster upon which others are judged. I mean, Hurricane Katrina, Superstorm Sandy, but from a historical standpoint, the Great Flood of 1889 in Johnstown really still lives on in this folkloric almost category where we had thousands of people killed. It was a matter of class versus privilege, and people lost their lives, their homes, their businesses because a select group of very wealthy, the early version of the one percenters, wanted a playground, including a lake that was poorly constructed, a dam that was holding that lake back. And so I think that there's a lot of resonance today with what happened back in 1889.
I've heard you say, never give up your day job. And even though you've had success in all these other arenas, we still get the pleasure of seeing you every morning. Why do you feel so strongly about that?
I'd love to take credit for that line, but I repeat it. It was given to me by my mentor, Willard Scott, literally like a second dad to me. And he had told me two things that have held me in good stead as far as my professional and personal life. One was always be yourself, because that's all you've got. They can take everything else away from you, but if you're you, that is yours. And the other, never give up your day job, is that in a way, all of this, everything I've gotten to do, kind of springs from the fact that people know who I am because they see me every morning. And so, and by the way, I love what I do. I love my day job. I love doing the weather on the Today Show.
You mentioned your mentor, Willard Scott, and some of the things he taught you. What would be your advice to anyone looking to advance their career or become an entrepreneur?
I think in life, whether it's professional or personal, I think you've got to have passion. I think you've got to love what you're going to do.
My final question is, what else still do you have curiosity around? Like, what has Al Roker not done yet that he would be curious to still do?
I have not partaken in space travel. I don't know that I would if offered, but I'm really curious about that. What is that like?